Hello and welcome to IntentioKnit. Today I'm going through my yarn low buy 2026 rules. If you want to know my goals and what my rules are, keep on watching. Let's do the goals first. So I wanted to have a set of goals that I can hopefully track at the end of the year or maybe even monthly in my monthly yarn update. It's also to keep myself accountable, to remember my why. My why in the main part is to have a little bit too much yarn for what I feel comfortable with, and I want to have a bit less. I want to work through my old yarn stash with yarn that I don't really like anymore, or I don't prefer the color, I don't prefer the textile, and I noticed that if I have too much of one thing that I will tire of it. I am allowed myself to buy new yarn under specific circumstances, and I am also forcing myself to use what I have. So let's just get into the goals. My first goal for 2026, the yarn low buy, is to leave 2026 with less yarn than I entered 2026 with. I recently uploaded my yarn stash video, so if you're curious about how much yarn I have and what kind of yarn, you can have a look at the video. I'll link it up here. But the main part is that I have my starting number and I'm going to track how much yarn I bring into my home, how much yarn leaves my home by finishing projects and by decluttering and giving away and donating. So my main point is just I have a number to start with. I'm starting the year with 15,442 grams of yarn. I want to end 2026 with far less. Can I get down to 5? I'm not putting a number amount on the goal, but I have it in my head. And I'm going to track this by doing a monthly video to stay accountable, so keep a watch for those. My second goal is to use up all my old pre-2020 yarn. I'm just calling pre-2020 yarn my old yarn because I have some yarn from I think 2008 or 7 or 9. So I have a lot of very old yarn, or I don't have a lot, I have some very old yarn, and I would very much like to have that leave my stash. And I want to only have the newer yarn available. So I have a lot of bits and bobs that have been staying in my stash for many years, and I don't want them here anymore, so they are going to leave one way or another. My third goal is to continue my overall goal of a self-made wardrobe. I really want to have most of my sweaters made by myself, and to be able to do that I need to have some new yarn in. I don't have much sweater amount yarn. I think I only have one sitting in my current stash ready to go. A lot of my sweater yarn or already made sweaters are in wool, and that's great for the winter season, but what about spring? What about summer? What about autumn? I use mostly cotton or linens for the whole year, so only having wool sweaters and cardigans isn't really aligned with my goal of making my own clothing. So I will need to buy yarn for making new sweaters and cardigans. My fourth goal is I don't want to make things I want in the wrong color or material. This kind of ties into my last one, making my own self-made wardrobe. But it goes a bit further, and it goes into more of the needing to really think through a project before I started. I have made sweaters in the past where I chose the wrong color or I chose the wrong material and never really used it. And I don't want to make that mistake again. Or to me it's a mistake, because if I spend so many hours, 30 to 100 hours on one item, I really want to be able to use it. So before I buy any yarn or before I start any project this year, I need to think it through. Do I really want to use this if I make it in these colors? If I don't, that's fine, but I need to account for that. It's there sort of a reminder to myself that if I wouldn't wear it, I won't make it. To rather think, is there anyone else in my life that loves this color or would want to have anything made in this style? Then sure, that's a good option. But for myself, I need to be very intentional about what I make, color and material wise. My last little rule is that decluttering, giving away and donating is okay. I am not going to push myself to use things that I don't want to use. And I'm going to log how much I declutter, give away, donate, and that kind of thing, so we can see the accurate amount of how much have I used versus how much have I gotten rid of elsewise. I have 3 lists. I have a green list, which is this is allowed. You can buy this, you can get these things, no problem. I have a yellow list, which is you need to think this through, or it needs to be some time before you acquire this. And then I have my red list, which is absolutely not. Do not get these items in 2026. So let's start with my green list. This is things that I am allowed to get. I don't have any big restrictions, but I need to keep my goals in mind, especially, you know, materials and colors and things like that. So I'm going to go through my rules and explain a little bit along the way what's my intention behind it. So my first list on my allowed green list is yarn to start a bigger project immediately. Now, what I mean by this is I only have 1 sweater amount in my stash ready to start. If I want to start another sweater or another big blanket, I don't have the yarn for it. And with my goal of having a self-made wardrobe, I am allowing myself to get yarn for these bigger items. I will have to think through a lot. Do I have something similar? Is this going to replace an item? But the main thing is I am allowed to buy this for myself. The sort of caveat here is that I need to start that item immediately. I can't buy yarn for something that I'm going to make later in the year. And the reason behind this is where I live, we have just around 2-month return policy for yarn. So the big thing here with immediately starting it is I can finish most things within 2 months, at least if I'm good at not having too many whips going. And that would mean that if I buy too much yarn, which I often do, I will be able to return that yarn. A lot of my stash yarn is actually leftovers from other pieces that I've made, and it's something that I don't want anymore. I can have a little bit left over, like if I start a skein, that's fine, but I don't want 2 to 5 extra skeins from a project that I already done. It's something that I will have to deal with later, like doing my stash down project right now. And I would much rather just make the project and then deliver the yarn back to the yarn store. I think you get your money back, or you can get new yarn for it. That yarn will also have to be within my rules. So there's no, oh, I bought too much yarn, let's loophole this and get some new fancy yarn. No, I'm going to stick to my rules even if I have to return some yarn. That was a long explanation of I can get new yarn, but I need to start that project immediately, and I need to be very specific about what I'm making, and I need to finish it within the 2 months so that I can return leftover yarn. That would be a huge weight off my shoulders to have a lot of that sort of single or 2 to 3 skeins extra just gone. That would be great. And then the second, and I have a second and third, but it's really just one thing. It is being allowed to buy yarn to start a project that I need more yarn for to finish, or it's to buy yarn to finish an ongoing project. So for my big blanket, if I needed more yarn for that, I would be allowed to get that, to finish it off, to have the project that I want in the end. And it's also if I have 1 skein of yarn that I want to use up to the stash. An example I often find myself in is I have 1 extra skein of sock yarn, I need another one to finish it, so I will be allowed to get that. So that is my 2 to 3, allowed rules. It is to make new projects that I really want, and it is to be able to finish projects and unlock the yarn I have. Then we have the yellow list. Here we have kind of a think about it or wait for a bit before you get it. I have 3 things here. One thing is gift card. So gift card, I have a couple of yarn gift cards that I want to use this year, and it is money that someone, gifted me to buy yarn from a specific place, and it's something I want to be mindful of. I don't want to use that as sort of a loophole. I don't want to use it just to get some new yarn that I've been wanting. It needs to be within my, green rules, that it's a new bigger project I'm going to make immediately, or it's to finish something off. So a gift card or being gifted money for yarn, that sometimes happens for my birthday, it needs to still be within the rules. So I am allowing gift cards and using gift cards. That also aligns with my goal of spending a bit less money on my hobby this year, but I'm going to be very careful what I use it for. The second is gifted yarn. I have friends and family that sometimes will give me yarn, and usually I just say yes and I don't think much about it. This year I'm going to have a good think about it. Is this yarn I will use? Like, if it's sock yarn, yes, I will use it. I will get to it eventually. If it's big bulky yarn, or if it's super thin, I most likely won't use it. So if that happens, I'm going to pass and maybe try to suggest someone else I know that would use it. But I'm not going to take in yarn just because I'm gifted it. It needs to be yarn that I will realistically use. And then my last yellow list item is sock yarn. I made 36 pairs of socks in 2025. I probably won't make as many in 2026 since I am doing this destash project, but the thing is, I want to always be able to go into my yarn room and pick up projects to start. Especially socks, I always have socks on the go. So I haven't really counted how many socks I can make. I think it's around 15, but I always want to be able to have some sock yarn in my home. If I get to the place where I have used up all the sock yarn, or I'm getting close to it, I will allow myself to buy some more sock yarn so that I can have it on hand. But I hope to be able to finish most, if not all, of the sock yarn I have first. That would be great. Alright, then we have my red list. This is my do not buy under any circumstances. Let's see how this goes. The first one is pretty simple. It is, don't buy any yarn because it's on sale, or it's pretty, or I want to try it. I have done this before, and this is a lot of the reason for especially my old yarn. In my 20s, I bought a lot of yarn just to buy it. I was in a not the best period of my life, a lot of things were happening, and shopping yarn was one of the things that I did to make myself feel better. I don't do that anymore, and I don't have any issues with other doing that, but that's sort of the reason why I have a lot of the yarn that I have that I want to use up now. Being careful to not buy things just because it's a good price or just because I'm curious. That is a hard no. So no yarn just because it's cheap or because it's pretty. Second is any knitting or crochet accessories that's not on my wish list. I am starting and have started a wish list for things I want to get one day for knitting and crochet. Now I have sort of that wire that you can put on your knitting sweaters instead of having to thread everything in. I might get that one day. But the thing is, if it's not on my wish list and I'm out and about and I just see something, I'm not getting it. I have everything I need. If I want something, it needs to be on my wish list and it needs to stay there for a good while. When I have done other low buys or no buys, I have had a rule of waiting at least 30 days. That has always made me shop about 95% less. So if I put 10 things on my wish list, after a month I might get maybe one of them. And that's sort of the intention here, that if it's not on that wish list, I'm not getting it. So if I see something that I want, it's going on the wish list. It will have to wait for a good deal of time. I will need to see, can I use something I already have? And also, I've been knitting and crocheting for a lot of years. I have been able to get by without it, so why would I need it? You know? And then the third and final one is no yarn for future projects. I have done this before and it's sort of covered by my other rules, but I have one sweater amount of yarn in my stash right now. It's the purple yarn. I bought that in maybe August last year, planning on starting it immediately. I didn't, but I will use it. It's going to be a big part of my stash down. But that's sort of the thing, that if I'm not immediately starting it, it will be sitting there. I will change some kind of preference. I will think, oh, I don't really need that, or is that the right color, or did I really want to use cotton? So yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm stopping that right now. I'm not doing that anymore. So that is my yarn low buy rules. I am open to maybe changing my rules along the way, along the year. This is my hobby, you know, knitting and crochet is one of my biggest hobbies. I really love it, and if I at any point notice that this yarn low buy or stash down is taking the joy of knitting and crocheting away from me, I will have to look at my rules. I am not going to pressure myself to be miserable while I am doing this. This is not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to have less stash. But my hopes is that if I can have a few projects going at the same time, some things that I'm really looking forward to and some things I'm using just to use up, that combination, having both things going at the same time, will make it possible for me to keep going and keep doing this. I also hope to be able to find fun and nice projects for most of my yarn, to sort of not have to grind through and just get through everything. I hope to be able to always enjoy what I make, and if I don't, I am very open to just quitting the project and then doing something else with the yarn. So you might ask yourself, what am I going to do with all of this yarn stash? For watching what I'm actually working on, you can watch my knitting podcast. I am aiming for twice a month. You know, it takes time to knit and crochet, and I am also doing my monthly updates on how much yarn I've used, how much yarn is coming into my home, so you can watch that in the future. I will most likely also do some videos about how I am using up this yarn, sort of scrap projects and small things like that. My plan is to use most of my yarn stash this year. I'm hoping to at least half what I have, so let's see how that goes. Thank you so much for watching. I hope maybe you got some ideas for yourself if you want to do this. Please subscribe if you want to see how this year goes. I am hopeful. Thank you so much for watching.